The concept of bicameral mentality, as proposed by Julian Jaynes, suggests that early human societies, including those of the ancient Greeks, attributed their feelings and desires not to their own cognition, but to external deities. This theory explains that the human brain was formerly divided in function, with one section speaking and another obeying this bicameral arrangement. Jaynes posits ultimately lead to the emergence of human consciousness. It's an idea he explained in his 1976 book, The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Jaynes used the term bicameral, which means two chambers, to describe a state of mind where experiences and memories from one hemisphere of the brain are transmitted to the other through auditory hallucinations. This metaphor originates from the idea of brain function lateralization. Though in a healthy brain, both hemispheres are in constant communication through the corpus callosum. The bicameral mentality, according to Jaynes, is unconscious and incapable of reasoning through self-reflection. It lacks the capacity for executive functions such as voluntary mind, wandering, and conscious introspection. As societal structures evolved, Jaynes proposed that this bicameral model was supplanted by a conscious mode of thinking, based on the learning and use of metaphorical language. The experience of the ancient man, as per Jaynes, closely resembled that of a modern schizophrenic. Hallucinations would provide instructions or commands that were uncritically obeyed, rather than using conscience evaluation when confronted by unfamiliar situations. Jaynes uses this hypothesis to explain command hallucinations that appear frequently in people with schizophrenia and other conditions. Jaynes' theory centers around a perceived absence of self-awareness or cognitive processes, such as introspection, in early written works like the Iliad and parts of the Old Testament. He contrasts this with later works like Homer's Odyssey and the later sections of the Old Testament, which seem to illustrate a deep shift towards a primitive form of consciousness. Jaynes observes the anthropomorphic representation of gods in ancient cultures, which he believes reflected each bicameral person's unique desires and experiences. He argues that the treatment of the dead as if they were living and the ensuing auditory hallucinations were intrinsic to religion in early human communities, with these voices being produced by the right brain counterparts of the left brain language centers. Touching upon the condition of schizophrenia, Jaynes links its symptoms to humanity's previous bicameral state, with patients experiencing command hallucinations that instruct their actions, a feature similar to the divine commands in archaic stories. This idea finds indirect support in Daniel Smith's 2012 publication, Muses, Madmen, and Prophets, Rethinking the History, Science, and Meaning of Auditory Hallucination. According to Jaynes, a pivotal transition from bicameral thinking to introspection and modern consciousness occurred during the second millennium BC. He theorizes that the strain of environmental changes over time could cause the collapse of ancient societies reliant on this bicameralism, as evidenced by disappearing Mayan civilizations and Egypt's unstable periods. The study focuses on the unique and depleting ability of certain individuals, depicted in the book of 1 Samuel, to seek divine guidance through methods like casting lots. This ability was said to be present in children who could communicate with the gods, but diminished with societal and linguistic developments. Those who retained the skill, identified as bicamerals by Jaynes, could face death. Today, remnants of the bicameral mind are seen in mental illnesses such as schizophrenia, asserts Jaynes. There exists no evidence, Jaynes claims, of insanity before the collapse of the bicameral mind, an underpinning of his theory. He insists that references to madness in Homeric literature are misinterpretations. His hypothesis about the bicameral mind, though contentious, was validated in early reviews and called for further examination. The Origin of Consciousness, achieving commercial success, has since existed in multiple formats and languages. It was first published in 1976 and received a National Book Award nomination in 1978. Artists like Philip K. Dick, Terence McKenna, and David Bowie acknowledged the book's influence. A new edition of the work, which elucidated on the primary themes and addressed critiques, was released in the 1990s. Jaynes believes language is crucial but not adequate for consciousness. Although it is thousands of years old, consciousness couldn't have emerged without it. This consideration that language is vital for personal consciousness and complex thoughts has endorsement from several thinkers. Countering criticism, Gary Williams stands by the concept of consciousness as a societal and linguistic construct, learned in childhood and shaped by lexical metaphors and narrative practices. Yet, the theory does not fully unravel the enigma of hallucinations, a central element of madness, as per The rebuttal by Asayage H. Shapiro. Despite its controversy, Jaynes' theory continues to provoke compelling discussions on the nature of consciousness. The origin of consciousness in the breakdown of the bicameral mind is either absolute nonsense or sheer brilliance, according to Richard Dawkins in The God Delusion. Dawkins is uncertain, leaning towards the former, yet cautious enough to entertain the latter possibility. Philosopher Daniel Dennett contends that while parts of Jaynes' hypotheses, specifically those on hallucinations, may have been incorrect, they do not diminish the main thesis. He emphasizes that such daring speculation is an inherent aspect of science, and if scientists are repulsed by such conjecture, they should refrain from exploring it, while others embrace potential mistakes and relish the process. Anthropology adjunct professor at University of Utah, Gregory Cochran, remarks that breakdown initially seems like an absurdly extreme theory, but acknowledges that Jaynes could have been onto something significant. He comments on how genes that impact personality, cognition, and reproductive strategies can extensively change over relatively short epochs if environment pressures change. And this includes new societal structures and survival methods. He points out evidence suggesting such changes have occurred. Prolific author and historian of science, Morris Berman praises Jaynes' portrayal of this novel consciousness, calling it one of the finest. Tor Nørretrander's Danish science writer devotes an entire chapter in his 1991 book The User Illusion to discuss and elaborate on Jaynes' theory. Contrarily, Ian McGilchrist posits Jaynes' theory to be a reversal of reality. Rather than the two hemispheres of the mind fusing, as Jaynes suggests, McGilchrist believes the exact contrary occurred. Quichtan argues that McGilchrist wrongly interprets Jaynes' theory. Critics have also taken issue with Jaynes' proposed timeline of transition from bicameral mentality to consciousness, citing the ancient epic of Gilgamesh, which tells of introspection and mental processes that Jaynes claims were impossible for the bicameral mind. Despite acknowledging the most complete version of the epic is from post-bicameral times, Jaynes rejects these examples of introspection as later edits by conscious scribes, pointing out differences between the latter version and earlier fragments. This response, however, fails to address the standard version of the epic, which dates to late 2nd millennium BC, or the introspective traits distinctly present even then. In 1953, Bruno Snell argued that the concept of self as we understand it today did not exist in the psychology of ancient Homeric Greeks. He explored how this notion did eventually emerge within Greek culture. Building upon this finding, Eric Robertson Dodds proposed that the Greeks recognized individuals' actions but attributed their motivations to external divine forces such as gods or demons. Arthur William Hope Adkins further developed this argument, suggesting that Greek society's shift to ecocentric psychology was necessitated by urban living, where integrated thought processes became crucial. Neurologist V.S. Ramachandran supported this understanding in his 2003 book, The Emerging Mind, where he portrays the left brain as an apologist and the right brain as a revolutionary. These theories set a foundation for psychiatrist Ian McGilchrist's exploration into brain hemisphere functions, highlighting the left hemisphere's increasing dominance over the right, leading to detrimental effects on society. Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga's research affirmed these theories, culminating in his split brain experiments resulting in the left brain interpreter hypothesis. Remarkably, Michael Persinger, co-inventor of the God helmet, suggested that the device could stimulate mystical experiences by introducing right hemisphere consciousness into the typically dominant left hemisphere. However, scientific replicates found the effect to be a placebo. This concept of bicameral mind was featured in popular culture, shown in Westworld and the analysis of Total War Saga, Troy. This field of study evolved into the Julian Jaynes Society, formed by Marcel Quichtan. Many books exploring Jaynes' theory have been published, including the acclaimed Reflections on the Dawn of Consciousness, 2007, which comprises various essays and an extensive biography of Julian Jaynes. Reinterpretations. The Evolving Consciousness Explored Across Cultures, 2013, is an engaging exposition by Rabbi James Cohen, which delves into the spectrum of human consciousness as influenced by various cultural paradigmas. This exploration is broadened in the multifaceted anthology Divine Interlocutors and Bimodal Mentality, 2016, which scrutinizes diverse facets of Jaynes' theory such as ancient history, language, childhood consciousness development, and the evolutionary mental transition observed in ancient Tibet. Informal dialogues on bicameralism and consciousness, 2022 comprises enlightening conversations with leading scholars discussing Jaynes's theory, featuring valuable insights from Tanya Lukerman, John Kilstrom, Eduardo Castiglia, Ira Sommer, and many more distinguished academics. There are also multilingual versions of Julian Jaynes's work in French, German, and Spanish. The Society also offers its members a plethora of resources, including articles, lectures, and interviews based on Jaynes's theory. The legacy of Jaynes's work is continued by his former student Brian J. McVeigh. His works, Divine Communication in Scriptures, A Psychological Outlook 2020, Rediscovering Jaynes, Ancient Tongues, Spiritual Visions, and Neglected Mentalities, 2018, and An Evolutionary Overview of Religion, The Living Dead, Communicative Idols, and Enthralling Architectures, 2016, are essentially expansions of Jaynes's theory.